and this is our plan of attack.
Banks have become an essential threat to our democracy. So consider this justice.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the internet. Please help support this station so this battle can continue forward. Revolution Radio! The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Barbara Jean Lindsay is an internationally acclaimed psychic, spiritual healer, author, and founder of the online mystery school, Esoteric University. As the Cosmic Oracle, she is a conduit to the powers that be to answer your questions about your future self, past lives, current career, love. She shines light into the darkness to illuminate what was, what may be, and beyond. The readings and advice given by Barbara Jean Lindsay are for entertainment purposes only, should not take the place of any medical, legal, or financial advice given to you by a qualified professional, and are not a substitute for medical, legal, or financial advice. If you need a doctor, call a doctor. If you need to be expanded, call the Cosmic Oracle.
Hello and welcome to the Cosmic Oracle Show. This is your host, Barbara Jean Lindsay. It is September 28th on Friday night here, coming to you live from the Los Angeles area. And I'm really happy to say that we have made our quota for the month. And I'm just, this is our third year doing this, and it's very seldom that we get to meet our quota without begging for it in a way. And so I really want to thank all of our listeners tonight for making the goal. Our goal each month is $2,600, and we have raised $2,933 so far. So it's pretty exciting. And so we want to thank you for your generosity, and really looking forward to being on the air throughout 2018 and the many years to come. And we're only here thanks to you and your donation. So be assured that every dollar you donate goes directly into keeping this station on the air, as we are an all-volunteer station. So that means no one gets paid for their services. So keep us on the air, continue to donate, and thank you so much for donating this month and keeping us on the air once again. Yahoo! So I'm excited to have I guess I'm in a general exciting mood tonight. I don't know why. My energy's good. It's up. It feels, it feels good today. And so I'm going to take that, okay? It's not every day. So I'm going to take that my energy's up, and it's probably a good thing that my energy's up, because I have for you tonight an amazing person that's going to come on the air tonight on the Cosmic Oracle Show, and that is, our guest is Robert Potter. Now, Rob has been researching healing and consciousness for over 40 years. Okay, that's not 10, 20, 30, but 40 years. So he really is an icon to the consciousness movement. And he's given seminars all over the world, including Egypt, Japan, Australia, Bolivia, Peru, Canada, Europe, and the USA. And he has a website called The Promise Revealed. And you can enjoy his interviews there, including his interview on Coast to Coast. And his website is thepromiserevealed.com. That's thepromiserevealed.com. And this website tells Rob's story and has many of his revelations about planetary liberation and the advanced healing technologies, which he's been involved in for many, many years, and many of which involve pyramids, sacred geometry, crystals, lasers, and Tesla coils. He also, sound, light, and color also will be instrumental, he says, in the healing of our world. And he has a weekly radio show called The Victory of Light radio show, and that's on pyramid1network.com. And Rob leads sacred site tours to South America, Bolivia, and Peru, and to Egypt. And you can check out his website to see what his dates are going to be in 2019, thepromiserevealed.com. And he's been experiencing UFO contact since 1975. So once we bring him on, I'd love to hear some of his stories, his personal contact stories with different ET groups, and what are some of the revelations maybe he received from that exchange. And we'll have him talk about his experiences that when he was ordained into the Royal Order of Melchizedek through the Venutian commander Valiant Thor. And, you know, Valiant Thor, like the 1950s, if you're into this sort of thing, where he worked with Eisenhower at the White House, and a Venutian. And so I can't wait to hear him talk about these stories. So he's also working with a fellow contactee named Cobra to prepare people for the event. And so we'll be talking to Rob about the event. And he's traveled extensively for the search for truth, and has spent time with Sai Baba in India, and has been taught Kriya Yoga by Babaji. So he was, at 22, Rob was invited to the desert by the ascended master Hilarion via Gabriel Green, whom I had the pleasure to meet when I was the owner of the Integratron out in Landers. So he was able to meet a teacher, and the teacher was one of the ET's original Earth military allies. So Rob then experienced his first physical contact with 3 witnesses present, and Rob has spent much of his time studying the extraterrestrials. He has also met several ETs in person. So, I mean, he has 29 pages in his bio, okay? So I'm not going to, we're going to just kind of go through this and see what Rob is doing, and see what kind of interplanetary cultural exchange that he's been living through. I do want to say that Rob is also the producer for the Mount Shasta Summer Conference. He does one every year, and he just did one in July, and it was from Venus with Love, and he had amazing international speakers there. Robert Potter, will also be speaking at Stargate to the Cosmos, October 25th through the 28th in Mexico, Albuquerque. And I will get to meet him in person there, so that's pretty exciting. And you can go to stargate-to-the-cosmos.org. So there's just a beginning of our guest, and I'm going to see if I can call him now and pull him into the show. Let me find him here. I want to add him to the call. Rob Potter, there he is. Let's hope he answers. Okay, Rob. All right, we'll add him. There we go. We'll add to the call. Hopefully something will happen. And he has a really cool image of, looks like Archangel Michael as his icon. So, you know, the mighty warrior sword of truth and justice. So hopefully he will answer. And it's ringing now. Hello, Rob. Okay, are you there? Okay.
Yeah, Barbara.
Yes, we have Contact Houston. All right.
Mission control. We have landed. Hey, you called me on my phone for some reason. I'm sitting here at the computer. It didn't go off. Let's. I'm gonna call you back. Okay.
Okay. All right. So he's gonna call me right back. Hopefully, I can take it. I will turn that off. There we go. And he is going to call back.
I'm here now.
Okay, he's back. Da, 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 da. All right, Robert Potter. So, how have you been?
Oh, pretty good. Nice to meet with you. We didn't get to talk too much. Very excited that you used to own the Integratron. I had a lot of good times out in the desert there. I used to work in Palm Springs as a massage therapist from the early 80s till probably about the 90s out there. I worked at Two Bunch Palms and some of the higher-end spas. And Gabriel Green, one of my favorite contactees, I had some of my, I think my first physical landing experience was out in the desert there, very near Bob Short's house.
Huh. Yeah, I know where you're talking. I lived in Palm Springs for 15 years and the Landers and the desert is a place for expansion, to say the least, right? You never know. When I was at the Integratron, I never knew who was going to show up either. We had all kinds of different kinds of people show up. And Gabriel Green, he was so amazingly wonderful with a group of teenagers that I brought to his house one day, and we talked with him. And you know what was funny? I was going to tell you this earlier, that all the kids, they were about 15 to 18, there were about 12 of them, they all fell asleep when he was talking. And I think that's because the energy was so high that they just, it went through their body in a different way. And so then they all went to sleep at the same time, and they all woke back up at the same time when he was finished talking. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I think there might have been something else going on there. But Gabe, I have tons of Gabe stories. In fact, one of one of the people that purchased his library was just on with my friend Frank Chili on the Jeff Rent Show, and that's archived if people want to check out Jeff Rent, so you can hear about the Gabriel Green stories. He has lots of stories. And then I also I'm going to recommend you interview my friend Raymond Keller. He's just finished his 4th book on Venus, an amazing contactee. He got to live on Venus for 2.5 months, has had numerous contacts, and tremendous volume of information is coming forward from him. And he's going to be joining us at the Stargate Cosmos.
Oh, I'm so excited. Is he going to be speaking? Is he going to be speaking there?
Oh, yeah. He's speaking.
Oh, cool.
And he's actually traveled in time to the first Giant Rock Convention. He's traveled to the future. He's traveled to the past, doing some of his research, and tremendous individual. Very humble, very kind, very sweet, like all of my Venutian friends. I just talked to Omnik a little while ago. She came to I talked to her about an hour ago. She came to my conference this summer, and she's kind of getting on in years now and finishing up her earthly mission. And she came to my conference in Mount Shasta this summer, along with Luis Mostojo Martins, one of the premier South American contactees who has multiple contacts from Alpha Centauri, Tau Ceti, Venus, and he's been to the inner Earth retreats of the Great White Brotherhood. So we are ramping up the levels of contact to reach the mainstream public now, to bring the spiritual information and the true history of the Earth to the common people, so we can bypass this ignorant superstition and fear that pervades our planet, to heal it in a big way.
Yeah, like lockdown, right? Lockdown. It's been locked down.
Well, we're in quarantine due to our violent nature, but good thing is there have been civilizations. Venus has been around for 3 billion years, unlike the Earth, and they have a very long history. In fact, I'll share the Queen of Venus, who is a friend of Raymond's, and I can tell that story. I've told it before, but she is the. Excuse me, just a second. I was coughing a little bit there, but her name is. They call her. She's the reigning Queen of Venus. Her name is Lady Orda, and she took Raymond to Venus in 2012. He's lived in many countries around the world, and he has many degrees from the University of West Virginia, and his books are tremendous. Raymond Keller on Amazon. You can check out. I've been posting many of his articles on my website, thepromiserevealed.com. And he was taken by her to Venus in 2012 for a, quote, Ascension party. And when he got there, he was able to witness the ascension of the Queen of Venus, who was taken to the colobe, or the center of our galaxy, what they call the central sun of Alcyone, in the Pleiades there. So one of the things that many things happened to him there, but he was granted permission to look into the Akashic records. So he would go to the Akashic records and study them. They didn't normally allow that, but after the Queen ascended, guess what? His friend Lady Orda was named the new Queen of Venus. Huh. Now, the Queen of Venus, there are 51 local star systems in our neighborhood. And on the physical plane, the Galactic Confederation appoints, like the head of the United Nations, they appoint, and Lady Orda is the of 51 solar systems and many more planets, 51 suns. She is the head of the Galactic Confederation in our region of space. So there's some pretty high contacts coming on here, and we're getting more profound information as people's minds are opening up. Lord Dismas, or the accidental apostle, who was crucified with Christ, is known as the Ascended Master El Morya, and he had spent time on Venus and met the Ascended Master Morya, and there's just a tremendous volume of information. So, I've sung his praises before, but he's going to be a real superstar. He's not the most profound or glib speaker, but he is the warmest heart and the most kind and gentle soul you will ever meet. He's full of love and humor, and there's a tremendous amount of information coming forth from him.
And you have his some of his information on your website too.
Yep, you can see it, and I recommend you read the books. I can share. There's all kinds of things. If you want to hear more about that, I didn't know where you want to go. I just wanted to start sharing that.
Yeah, whatever your heart says to talk about. I'm with you on the world stage. That this is the world stage now, and it's and bringing all this out where people can hear it. However, it's comfortable for them to receive it, or uncomfortable for them to receive it.
Yeah, well, my history is I worked with Dr. Fred Bell when I was very young. I had, I guess, a unique history of desire to know the truth. And, of course, my time with Fred Bell was filled with lots of amazing experiences. Many of my original experiences were out of body, and so it was hard to get that into thing. And then I'd been going out to Gabriel Green's house, and he called me one day and said, "The Ascended Master Hilarion is sending a teacher out for you." I was 84. I was probably 23 years old at this point, and about 7 years into my contact experiences. And I have to say most of my, some of my most profound experiences were with Fred Bell, and were in the disciplines of more metaphysical and esoteric areas of learning, as opposed to nuts and bolts or mainstream ufology. And so Gabriel Green calls me on a phone. I'm in Desert Hot Springs there, and I answered the phone, and he said, "You're going to come up?" And I said, "Sure." So I hung up the phone, but 23 years old, I was hanging out down at Cecil's and and some of the the nightclubs down there and partying. And so when I hung up the phone rang again like a fire alarm. It was loud, and the people it was a TikTok there near Desert Hot Springs hotel there, and the phone rang. The people in the TikTok looked, the people across the street, the people behind me across the street, everyone was looking at me, the people in the parking lot, and everyone's like telepathing to me, "What's that sound?" "It's the phone. Answer it." So I picked it up, and it was this loud echo, which Gabriel had played for me one of the times when they called him on his phone. They used to call him from the phones in outer space, and he'd recorded one of them. I heard it was a very similar. So that was a message to me. Do not blow this invitation off. You get up to Gabe's house this weekend. When I got there, there was a military guy who had escaped from an underground, or he escaped from a prison because he was an underground base special forces guy, and he was working in an office, but he was under mind control. So he had a car accident that broke his programming, and so he started to remember things. He didn't go to work, and then he came back to work and found out that he was going underneath the surface of the base in Arkansas, and he was working with what he called Beelzebub's court. Some of the demons that were abducting the women, he would sit on the spacecraft as the little grays would abduct women, bring them in, artificially inseminate them, and then pick them up 3 months later and remove the fetuses for their genetic altering program, which is blasphemy, and one of the reasons that Atlantis was allowed to be destroyed because of the negativity that had come into place there. So there's a tremendous amount of understanding in history. If people go to my website, we're trying to get it fixed now. I'm launching a new website soon, but in the meantime, it's a little slow. But under Truth References, there's a blog you can see, but there's also the Cosmic Plan. And there you're going to see the South American information on the history of the Earth, its relationship, and the political actions and the various situations that took place, Maldek, Lemuria, Atlantis, and the various programs and attempts by the benevolent extraterrestrials to bring us out of quarantine and to move us forward. And by all accounts, things are moving forward in that direction. Yeah, and you're a part of that, a huge part of that. Of what your work you've been doing for the past 40 years. I just really want to thank you for that, because it takes a lot of courage to do what you do and to speak your truth when, 40 years ago it wasn't very popular, 30 years it wasn't so popular, even 20 years, 10 years, and now do you feel like it's getting some momentum? Yeah, well, for years, I was getting contacts, being very young, like, 19 or 20, really. They would take me out of my body. There were certain metaphysical exercises, meditations, and breathing techniques utilizing some of the pyramid technology with Tesla coils and lasers that would provide an environment where I would leave my body. And, I can't really go into details with that. It's kind of classified, but I would watch the Earth disappear, and then I never met them. It was out of body, but they would show me things. I was given information, and I was shown a lot of metaphysical and understanding about the nature of the multidimensionality and the infinite nature of consciousness. So I had all the background, but they would follow me home at night. I'd come back into my body, and Fred would, before I would leave, he would say, go down and make an Epsom salt bath, which would ground me back into my body. I'd drive down the hill. I was only down the hill like probably half a mile as the crow flies, 3/4 of a mile on the road, and the fog would come in very quickly, and the light would follow me down this road at 3 a.m. And all of my experiences generally are late at night. And he said, this is because the astral plane it's quiet. Everyone's asleep now. So I could get out of the body in a better way. So I remember looking out my humble little studio deck, and this light would be there between me and the mountain was or the hill, the canyon there in Laguna, a Bluebird, was about 40 yards away, and this light would be kind of slowly pulsing. And I'd say, is this real? What is this? Why can't I remember everything? Why don't you just come and talk to me? And I just want to know. And the light would pulse, and I'd feel this emanation of love. And but I was young. It's hard to translate the out-of-body experiences. So what happened is for years I try to tell people about my experiences, and then Gabriel came out, and I won't go into the whole story, but he took me and another guy named Michael L. Legion out into the desert near Bob Short's house. They telepathically guide us to an exact location, and then he said, it's time to go over the hill for your demonstration. And the four of us sat there, and a UFO boom came down so fast it was ridiculous, and there was a bowl-like depression near Bob Short's house, and so the ship could land without being seen, and the ship was just pulsing there, and I started to cry because a female voice, and I'm not sure, I'm presuming it was the Pleiadian contact Semyasi that Fred Bell had been having contact with, and I started to cry, and she said, and the first thing she said was, now you know, Rob, because I had always been saying, I want to know, give me the real experience. And they landed, so I knew, and I said, well, this is wonderful, this is amazing, because I was very hippie-oriented, very much a rainbow gathering, a national peace, get back to nature. I resonated at that time more with the Hindu spiritual knowledge, which is a little deeper than the general Bible Christian one, although Christ is the exemplar avatar of our age, although you have to push past all of the programming. And I was feeling, a large connection there, and it was very exciting to know that we didn't have to go back to teepees, that we could maintain a symbiotic high technology in harmony with nature, that we could have free energy. We could ride in ships made of alchemically transmuted metal and living light and crystals and things like that. So I was very excited. I said, well, this is wonderful. What I do? And they said, tell this experience to people, and they will know by the way that you tell it that it's true. And so I was crying, and then all of a sudden I said, well, can you come out? Can we meet you? Can I talk? And she started laughing. So I remember I was laughing through my tears, just staring at this pulsing, it was kind of an orange and red and kind of a white light glow kind of pulsing there. It had a pulse to it. It was kind of no sound. I don't remember any sound, but she started laughing. And then she said, no, you think you're the Messiah. And I said, oh, okay. And then the military guy, who was very telepathic, looked at me, and he said, have you seen enough? And I said, yeah, she's not going to get out. And he nodded his head and said, yeah, I know. Now Gabe was about 10 feet away, and Michael was another, 15 feet away from me total. And so in retrospect now, I turned my back on the flying saucer, and the military guy and I started walking away. And Michael Allegian goes, "Where are you going? The ship is still here." He didn't know I was having telepathic. And I said, "She's not getting out." And at that moment, the ship literally just blinked out and disappeared. And I talked to Michael later. I don't think he even remembers that experience very well. For some reason, when you have these experiences, they sometimes get subliminally blocked or whatever. So I had a real contact in the desert, not too far from where the old contact in the desert. They actually asked me to go, "Hey, you want to pay for a booth?" And I said, "I had a real contact in the desert. I'm not paying. I'm not paying $1,000 for a booth to sit in the sweltering sun. You give me you gotta put me on the bill." But I guess I'm not that well known at that point. I still am not. I'm trying to get more speaking engagements. That's why I'm excited to be coming to the Stargate to the Cosmos with Janet Lesson, yourself, and many others.
Yeah.
Check it out, stargatetothecosmos.org. The 25th through the 28th in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And the 13th through the 15th, I'll be appearing in Canada, in Toronto, at a gathering of crystal souls.
Ooh, that sounds good.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one. And it's more a shaman, and I'll be sharing a lot about esoteric anatomy, how crystals and lasers, and more information on the spiritual development of our psychic consciousness. I sell crystals and lasers, which I think are one of the most powerful tools for the average person to develop their, understanding of their light body and their consciousness there. So that's kind of one of the things I'm doing there. But
what would you say about crystal balls? I'm a psychic, so I have a crystal ball that talked to me and came to me, and a whole story of that. It's quite large as a tool.
Right. Well, that's great. Now, people have to understand. I'm going to go I'll give you a little of my esoteric anatomy. So, why do people value gold, do you think?
Oh, I have no idea.
Well, gold is the metal of the sun. It has magnetic properties. It's it's masculine, and it's centripetal. It's centrifugal. Actually, the energy radiates from that metal. It's masculine. It's right hand. It's clockwise. The metal of the moon is lunar, electric, feminine, and that is centripetal. So gold's molecular structure is pyramid-shaped. We have 4 elements: carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and nitrogen. Four molecular configurations. And everything in the universe that we know on the physical plane is comprised of different degrees of carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and nitrogen. And now we go to the Native American wisdom, and it's the 4 directions. It's a little more humble and simple, but without the science from Atlantis being destroyed, us going back to the Stone Age, literally, we lost that information. But carbon is the earth element and contains a life force. So the pyramid, or the carbon atom, is the only molecular thing that provides a life force. So you have oxygen, hydrogen, and nitrogen, which are air, fire, and water, of course. And then, of course, you have the carbon, which is the earth element. So when the earth element of carbon is aligned to magnetic north, it has the inherent characteristic that it acts as a prism with the 7 dimensions, or the 7 sacred energies that come from the Creator, creating you imagine a prism, 7 colors of the rainbow. You also have
7 chakras.
Yeah. Now the chakras are 4 centers at etheric levels, which direct prana into the body, and there's life force there. So those are 4 centers at etheric levels. So they actually spin. Now all chakras have all colors, and they feed different organs. So you have 7 chakras, 7 notes of musical scale. What is the octave? That's number 8. So if you take half tones, now we go into the 12 organ meridians, and the octave is 13. So you have 7 chakras, but the organs relate. So everyone thinks the heart chakra is related to the heart. No, it's related to the thymus gland, which is green, the center of the spectrum. That is the 4th center. Then, but the sub-frequency that runs from the heart chakra goes to the heart meridian, which is pink, and that's a rose quartz. So there is a frequency associated with the different rays. They're called rays in the esoteric understanding of the divine life force, with these sub-frequencies affecting our bodies. There are different sound frequencies associated with each organ, each chakra, half notes, and our bodies are a living electrochemical community of cells. You also have electromagnetic properties. So it's very good that we are working with crystals, because crystals, you take your average, you take a little quartz crystal, it's been in the ground for 20 million years. That's a lot of information that has been stored in there. So the Akashic records, I saw many years ago, I was shown pictures on a tour of a contactee on one of the Pleiadian record rooms. And in the record rooms, they had the pyramid systems that Fred Bell was developing. I was like, wow. It was a giant base or mothership. I'm not sure what it was. But they had all of these crystals, and this was their record library. So they can access the history through the Akashic records. Raymond told me that from Venus, in the temple, in the capital on the surface of Venus, is the temple or the city of Azure. Now, much of the Venusians live underground, and there's a tremendous history I can go into there, but crystals are very important. If you read Lobsang Rampa's book, he had a crystal ball, was able to communicate with his masters and the teachers and guides from higher dimensions using a crystal ball. So men are usually a little more dense. So women are typically much more psychic and tuned in than men. So tuning into a crystal ball and becoming, having it next to you and using it. A special crystal ball is big and heavy. Don't let anyone touch it. It's yours. But, other crystals you can, obviously people can share and touch, but they can do something. Now, Semyasi, the Pleiadian, and I used to speak to her through Fred Bell. He would have telepathic. He goes, "She's here now. Do you want to ask her a question or something?" And he would repeat these very long, exact answers. Some of them were, I didn't write them down. I was a young kid, but one of them I do remember. A couple I remember. She said, "The quartz crystal is the perfect synthesis of spirit and matter in 0 time." So it is one of the cheapest tools of amplification of energy. And if I shoot it with a laser, which I do frequently, and I'll be sharing that at the conference, it's a very beautiful effect. It has a profound effect on consciousness, on your emotions, on your feelings, and on the vibrations of your endocrine glands. You can stimulate your pituitary gland with a red laser. Into a ruby would even be better, but they're expensive. Just use a quartz, and it's very powerful. Now, the pituitary gland is associated with the third eye. The chakra comes out where the Hindus have the kumkum dot on the forehead, and that's associated with the pituitary. Now, the pineal gland, the chakra is actually the crown chakra. So there's actually a vortex that comes down like a tornado and connects to the actual physical gland. So this is an exciting level of physics that's understood, that's being kept from us, but all advanced healing that's coming in the future will be through sound, light, and color, accentuating frequencies and developing the balancing. But we have a very profound artificial intelligence and a matrix controlled by we can call it the dark side that, we can overcome, but it's very difficult, and it causes a lot of distortions between families and people and ego and competition, and combined with the special uniqueness of the earth, we have a ways to go until we can transcend this negativity that the earth has taken on itself by taking on souls from other worlds who have not graduated. So the earth has done its work as a school, and it's about to make its ascension. Now, is ascension coming soon, immediately? No, it may take several hundred years until the planet completely ascends, but we're going to be moving into some major changes. And from my understanding and some of the contacts and information that's coming to me now through various sources, directly from some of the ETs themselves, is that there's going to be some what they call a torment or a storm. Not everything's going to be rosy. There's going to be continued earthquakes and changes. The massive wholesale destruction like Atlantis from the flip is not going to take place. But Raymond, in one of his journeys into the future, 700 years, he came to Southern California, and he said that there was flooding. It kind of separated California, kind of separated partially up Southern California along the San Andreas lines, and there was water there. He said the people were speaking kind of a hybrid Mexican Spanish. This was 700 years in the future. I said, did you go around? What happened? He goes, no, I just wanted to. He had some interest to go, and he went to some specific locations. But the indication is that we're not going to have open contact and mass landings. It's going to be, we've got probably 20 or 30 years until that happens. More contacts, more individual experiences, more teachers. There will be segments of light where contacts are taking place, but the general political situation, it seems the partial disclosure group in the military mindset is a little too strong. But timelines can change. Who knows? So we have some interesting things moving forward. So crystals are very important. I'll say that the pyramid shape is what they call the principle of matter made flesh. In other words, you only see an aura. When I was in 1979 going to UCSB, Fred invited me to UCLA, and Thelma Moss was doing some experiments with the pyramid systems. And we were able to see the plasma life force field coming from the pyramid. And they were doing experiments with some psychics who would wear the pyramid to accentuate their healing. They had a room that was divided by a wall with electrostatic, a very large electrostatic Hilarion film underneath. And the psychic would send healing energy to a person in the other room who had their hands on the plate as well to cure their headaches. And we actually saw the plasma field with the pyramid increase its strength and power, and going from the person directly to the points related to the head in what we call reflexology on the hand. So I was learning at a very early age the power of pyramids. So you take a plant and it has an aura. A human has an aura. You take a piece of metal, there's no aura. So, but a pyramid, a piece of metal, it has an aura. So that's a principle of matter made flesh. Now the Christ principle is a principle of spirit conditioned through time and space, returns unto spirit. So spirit, the physical plane is the vanguard. So what we are doing in our physical bodies is we are literally raising the vibration of dense physical matter and transmuting it into a higher state of consciousness. And that is the Christ principle, which has been known throughout the universe, and it's been known by different names and different things, but that's a universal principle. There's lots of esoteric stuff I could go into there, but Do you have any other question? I mean, I can go on and on.
No, it's great. It's great. So I like the raising the vibration to a higher state of consciousness, that we each do it individually and then collectively. Can you talk a little bit about the differences, and how that raises the whole, or changes the ability to change our world as we perceive it?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of different things. In 2012, there was people like, I'm not going to say the name, but a guy named GK from a different hemisphere from where we live was saying, oh, there's no chakras and the world, everyone's ascending. All these people were making these predictions that on 2012 that the whole planet's ascending. And I was just rolling my eyes. There's no way that humanity is going to go through that change that quickly. It's got, we're not ready. You don't go from kindergarten to, graduate school physics. It just doesn't happen. So with the removal of the parasitic artificial intelligence that's running our political and financial, military, industrial complex, that type of energy removed, those things can change, but it will take time. So I made an article on the thing. I said, forget it. It's not going to happen. It's like the rising of the sun in the morning. We get the first sunlight. Our bodies are going to take, a while to acclimatize to these new vibrations. Mm-hmm. So all of those prognostications, and that guy I mentioned is still saying there's no such thing as chakras. Well, I've seen them on thing, and people are talking about multi-strand DNA, which is true. That's occurring. I don't know if it's ever been proved in anyone, possibly within the higher levels of the government. There's other extraterrestrial intelligence DNA that they've unfortunately taken in a violent way from them. But that could be corroborated. But humanity will, DNA will be triggered through these vibrations to expand and to develop ourselves. DNA is very important. That's why the government is giving it away free, because they want to map your DNA and control you. They can do lots of negative things with that frequency, but we do have certain protections. The Venusians monitor the timelines. So they're going back in time all the time and switching things and stopping certain things. They don't mess around with it too much unless it's going to put us off course. So these are multi-higher dimensional beings that are guiding this process, that are blocking and correcting the timelines. Forget the secret space program of the government disclosure. I'm going to tell you, it's all distraction. That's all the military mindset. There's not a spiritual bone in any of their bodies. There's a few of them there that are cloaked, but all of that stuff is a distraction. You have mind-controlled people who have had their minds blank slated so many times. They don't really have any perspective or understanding of the long-range plans of the spiritual administration of this planet, known as the Great White Brotherhood, or the Shining Ones that live beneath the earth, as well as the varied nature of the extraterrestrials' contact. There's a whole lot of things going on there. Now, the government guys are scared to death. They've been involved in some very bad stuff. The military guys have been involved in watching it, but they're from a military background, very offensive, very defensive oriented, very secretive, and partial disclosure, their program of a little peek at a time is ridiculous. It's going to happen. Disclosure is going to happen through us, the people, and through the spiritual vibrations will change so dramatically that at some point there will be a tremendous change that will provide miracle healings, and many things will happen that will usher us into a new age. No man knows the hour. No angel knows the hour. It will come not at my time. Yeah, the right time.
When it's the right time. And with these multi-higher dimensional beings, can you talk a little, we have like 4:50, 7 minutes until the break. Can you talk a little bit about your contact and your personal stories with contact with these multi-higher dimensional beings?
Higher dimensional beings, my contacts were out of body. I just assume. I'll give you a little background, and then I'm going to talk about the ascension of many Earth people and many contactees that is unknown that Raymond is revealing, that is blowing my mind, and the number of contacts that are taking place. So, first of all, there's life on the physical plane on Venus. Forget NASA. There's lies. Raymond's books go through and kick the butt of NASA with all of the Chinese and the Russian space probes and the information. They're sharing a lot more about what's really going on out there. The Dark Force, what they call the Khazarian Mafia, they're basically demons inhabiting human bodies. The Chimera, the Jesuits, they're pawns in the Committee of 300, the Illuminati, the Freemasons at the highest level are pretty much manipulating the planet. But on the physical plane, on Venus, there is life, mostly around the equatorial regions. There are active volcanoes and things like that. There is also life on the astral plane, as there is on the Earth as well. So that's the next plane. And then above that, we have the mental plane, and there's life there. Now, another thing, he's revealed to me that there's probably 60 or 70 planets in our solar system. Many of them are in higher dimensions, and we don't even see them. So the universe is teeming with life, and these different life streams and consciousness have different relationships. They've been very concerned since the 40s when we started pinging radars off the moon and Venus. They started moving asteroids, hollowing them out with plush interiors for their monitoring stations so that they can, when Venus is around the dark side of the sun or on the back side of the sun with Mars, they can have communication. So they have advanced communication in all these asteroids. At the highest level, some of the governments know these are Venutian satellites, and they know don't go anywhere near them. The Venutian technology is the highest, and it is the guardian not only for 51 solar systems, but for the Jupiter portal of the Galactic Confederation. The moon Titan is also populated, and there's a lot of things that are coming to the forward now through Raymond and my other exceptional contactee, Luis Mostojo. Now, Fernando Martins from South America, who started having contacts at 13. So there's other dimensions there, but when we come back, I'll be happy to share about the translation. For instance, a friend of mine was with George Van Tassel, one of the original contactees who had an airport at Giant Rock. He went to his house after he passed away, and him and his friend were there, and they were frozen. No pain, no fear, but they couldn't move. They could move their eyes. And the girl, the woman, his wife, Dora, said, now, if anything happens at the door, don't go answer it. Don't do anything. And the door, they heard the door open at the front door. They were frozen for about 10 seconds, and the front door opened. They heard footsteps. They couldn't turn around. But a Venusian had come in to tell Doris. They found out later. He was there for 20 minutes and left. And then she told him, are we okay? And he said they put a little, they kind of just, wanted to freeze you or whatever so you wouldn't interfere. And they said that George Van Tassel did not die. They replaced his body with a clone, and he was currently living on Venus and was okay and sent his love to her. Now Frank had, Raymond has started telling me these other stories. The same thing. There's a picture of a guy that looks like George Adamski, about 40 years, I won't say 40. I'll say, I don't know when he died, but it was, he looked like he was in his mid-40s. About a month after his death, a guy appeared in England and was lecturing on UFOs. And there's a picture of him. So the feeling is that George Adamski also was able to ascend or Raymond Keller calls it translation. And when we come back, I'll go into the females. Very important. The females are a profound aspect, and the Venusian society is matriarchal. And we'll go back into time travel to sharing the information, the Venusians and their association with bees. Very interesting.
With bees. Okay.
Yeah. So how are we doing on time?
We have like 3 minutes. We're doing good. So,
okay.
Yeah, the females, Venusians, time travel, and bees when we come back. And then we'll hit a little bit on Ascension. And then Van Tassel, though, that you, I just go back to the 50s with everything that was going on back then at Giant Rock, and of course the Integratron and that whole immersion, and Gabe Green and
Bob Short.
Yes, and all of them that kind of started a portal for us to kind of take whatever we need to take from it and keep that baton going forward, right? Keeping it moving.
Right, and that goes into what you were talking about, the difficulties. Like, after I had that experience, I went and told my family, and they said, "Oh, are you under a pyramid with Fred Bell again?" And even my own family, and that was a shock to me. I was really sincere. This was a physical landing, and I was telling people, and I was on fire. I was telling people about this, and I got ridiculed, and so we got to 89. I had a chip on my shoulder, and I was in Laguna. I was doing a lot of yoga and at the beach, and I remember a spaceship kind of in the clouds in broad daylight, on the beach, just kind of a little, and they can make it so only you can see them. Like, I'll open a little window, and a ship kind of poked out of the clouds for a minute, and I was like, "What do you want?" I'm like 20 years old. I have no money. You're giving me all these visions. You want me to do something? You better blankety blank land. I'm done with you guys. Leave me alone. I go, what am I going to do? All I'm getting is grief and tremendous mission.
Judgment. So much judgment.
Yeah, mission failures in my head. I always had this, and I was always trying to tell people, and I just realized they're not ready for it. So I wouldn't even tell girlfriends, and then occasionally, if they would become close, I had girlfriends who had sightings with me. As we get closer, I would reveal more, and then
Syrian diplomat reported
a ship would come, and
that their population is evolving rapidly and advancing into a fifth-dimensional consciousness.
It's friendly.
They are seeking peace with all cosmic cultures, which may mean that the Earth will be asked to join the prestigious Galactic Federation of Light Alliances. Please join Debbie West and Michael Hathaway on Lost Knowledge.
We'll talk about
Saturdays, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Studio
so stay tuned,
A.
everyone. We'll be right
for
back.
The latest breaking news on the Star Visitor's peaceful contact and the ongoing project of cleansing the Earth.
Who are you? I am the architect. I created the Matrix. I've been waiting for you. Why am I here? You are the eventuality of an anomaly which, despite my sincerest efforts, I have been unable to eliminate from what is otherwise a harmony of mathematical precision, which has led you inexorably here. You haven't answered my question. The Matrix is older than you know. As you are undoubtedly gathering, the anomaly is systemic, creating fluctuations in even the most simplistic equation. Choice. The problem is choice.
Right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Be here Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for Private Eye Matrix Revealed with Monique Lassonde.
Hello, my name is Mr. Rowe. I am the host of Reality Extraction on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I utilize logic, intellect, and magic to methodically autonomize, vivisect, analyze, examine, study, scrutinize, and extract an essence of reality from a fog of illusion and confusion. You can find me on Studio B every Thursday at 1700 hours Pacific Time. That's 8 p.m. Eastern. No topic taboo, no subject too strange. I strive to take a neutral standpoint during the dissection of the topic at hand. That's Reality Extraction with Mr. Rowe on Revolution Radio.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Thanks for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we are listener-sponsored and commercial-free. But there still are bills to pay. In order to raise some needed funds to cover the cost, our station is offering a silver special. In the continental United States for a $60 donation, or in Alaska, Hawaii, or Canada for a $70 donation, we will send you an uncirculated 2018 1-ounce pure silver eagle. The $70 donation, the extra 10 is to cover shipping, by the way, outside of the continental United States. When making the donation, you must put Silver Eagle promo in the notes on the donation. And thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at revolution.radio and freedomslips.com. Without you, there is no us. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Collision Courses back. Schedule will be on Revolution Radio every Saturday night, 6 to 8 p.m. You get outer space. You get honest answers, real researchers, truthful answers, and a place to engage with questions. Take part in the discussion. Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com hosts Collision Course every Saturday from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific Time.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
This is your host, Barbara Jean Lindsay. Welcome back to the Cosmic Oracle Show. We want to thank you for being so generous in the past, and we made our quota this month. That makes me really happy. So if you would like to continue to keep us on the air, then go ahead and continue to donate and hit that donate button and give whatever you can afford, and no amount is too small. And we really do appreciate your continued support at getting the truth out here on freedomslips.com Revolution Radio. Thank you. And we have with us back, we have Rob Potter, and he will be talking about, I just want to, right before we left, we were talking about, you've really paid your dues, Rob. I mean, since your 20s, and how intense that of a ride it's been. Probably, a wild ride is probably not the best words, but you have been in on a wild ride and kind of way out of control, and then bringing it in, and then having to work within the third dimension and have a job and, do all those things as well. So how have you been able to kind of balance that as well?
It's been kind of hard. I mean, definitely, I met him when I was 16 or 17. I said I was in the pyramids. I was reading psychic discoveries, and I kind of my mother was metaphysically oriented. My great-grandmother was Catherine Tiffany. Her family made a fortune off of a special type of green glass. They made lamps, and then eventually the other brother branched off into jewelry. And she was a socialite. She was like on the front page, and her husband started, which is now known as the New Yorker. Originally, it was a Printer's Ink, and it was exposing the things. And she was metaphysically oriented. She supported, the Christian Science movement, and the other. What's the other one? Christian Science, and another one. She was kind of a psychic medium type thing, and so my mom grew up with that, and I kind of inherited a little of that. So I was interested, and girl goes, "Oh, the pyramid guy, I know the pyramid man." So I've talked about Fred Bell. He's passed away. I love him. I'm continuing to share his technology about pyramids, the nuclear receptor into projector, which is an Andromedan device utilizing shape energy and joules, and I'll be sharing that at the show too. But it's been interesting. I don't think I was ready to share the information till later, and then I became close with Cobra because he had the same experience with Semyasi about the same time I did in 79. He was younger than me. I was 17. I think he was like 9. And when I was having experiences, he was also having experiences. And so he reached out. I was the first person he ever talked to in his voice, he told me. So I helped him get his things going, and I've worked with him and support his information. The secrecy thing, and he's kind of political, and I kind of was advised by the Venusians to move away from that political stuff because I'm a quadruple Aries with a bad moon rising, and I'm very defensive. I'm very where there's injustice, I will step in. I've seen women shouting at women in parking lots, and I'll go up and go, "What are you doing?" And people kind of gather behind me, and they go, "Get the hell out of here!" And I go, "I ain't getting out of here nowhere, mother. You leave it. You get her alone." And the women are like, "Yeah, you tell them." And I go, "Get on your phones and call the police." I said, "Ramp it down, buddy. Step back." And I do that kind of thing. I saw these guys in Mount Shasta one time trying to pick fights. A bunch of lumberjacks came in and were just running around the bar trying to pick on people. They finally slapped some older guy. And I was about to step in, and another guy goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" And the bartender goes, "Take it outside." So I went out and watched this, and then I was getting ready to step in, and these guys, and I finally had enough. And the second I made a step towards them, the universe provided a police car, and they didn't see it. And so the guy goes, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I'm here to kick ass on some hellish activity." And I watched as the policeman kept walking up behind him, and this other guy came over to join, because so now it was 2-on-2, and the girlfriend of the guy was pushing him back. So I have a history of, I don't like bullies, whether they're cops or military or even kids in school. So the cop came up and grabbed the guy and threw him and goes, "John, what are you doing?" It turns out it was the sheriff's son.
Oh, God.
So, but that told me, that was back in 94 when I first moved to Mount Shasta. And it told me that, yes, you do get involved. The universe will support you. You must stop injustice. So I'm very familiar with the dark side. I've been studying it since an early age, the cover-up, the deceit, the chemtrails, the genetic engineering, the electromagnetic elf waves that run along, and the whole financial debt, slavery system. And I've been thinking, how is it going to happen? They could come down and take it over, and they could take out the entire Earth defense systems in 5 seconds. 5 seconds, everything would be done. And but that doesn't teach us anything. Semyasi said, if we come down and do things, you're not going to learn. In 1982, we had during what they called the big alignment. Everyone said earthquakes, but all the planets aligned in 1982. And spaceships came down that night. We were up all night. And I went out with Fred on the deck in the twilight of the morning. And I watched a spaceship come down really fast. It was physical, but it was so fast. It came down, went boom, up, boom, up, boom, up. It went 4 times. And I looked at Fred, and he looked at me, and he had telepathic abilities with me, him and I. He knew what I was doing. He was a master. He wasn't an ascended master, but he was a member of the Blue Lodge and a high adept. That wasn't always known. He had his personal issues. He did drink. There were some other things going on there. But he looked at me, and it was like, don't say a word, just watch. And I watched it happen. And for the next 2 weeks, I could see the islands in Santa Barbara. In 82, the smog was bad. You could barely see Catalina. So what they had done was their ships, by going up and down, creates like a lightning storm, a negative ionization, which is very important. When we put particles in the air from all of our pollution, it creates a positive ion and it lowers your consciousness. So they cleaned it up for 2 weeks, and they could do that to the whole planet. But what does that teach us? Nothing. So that's part of the growth process. So I'd like to share a little bit. We talked about individual ascension is taking place all the time. Cobra says, people aren't ascending. Everyone has different information. It doesn't mean Cobra, everything he says is wrong or not correct. Everything I say is not wrong or correct. Wilcock or whoever you want to look at, we all have our faults and we all have a different piece of the puzzle. Now, Raymond, having lived on Venus for 2.5 months, meeting ascended masters, the Queen of Venus, the head of the Galactic Confederation as a close personal friend, and multiple contact experience, I'm going to share with you some of the ascension stories he has. Now, Gabriel Green introduced him to Lady Orda in 1976. I think he was, he's a bit older than me, so he was, he's probably in his 20s or something, and he met her as a Venutian and had various contacts. He hasn't told me all of his stuff. He has so much amazing stories, and I read his books, and I just called him, and he said he'd be happy to be on your show.
I would love to have him on. In fact, our first talk, I have a Post-it right in front of me. It says, Raymond Keller, Books on Venus, must have on show.
Good. Let's get him on before the conference.
Yeah, let's do maybe next Friday.
Yeah, let's do it. I'll tell him he's absolutely adorable, super sweet, and just you have to kind of pry the stories out of them. He has a lot of historical information. He found out from he looked at a lot of his past lifetimes to see what's going on. His first incarnation was in 1 BC. He was the poet Virgil Publius Moro, a scribe for Caesar.
Wow.
And he had contact with a Venusian named Beatrice, who we now call Lady Ankara, and I'll get into that story. So, and then I said, what about, he said he had a lot of boring lifetimes, gathering sheep, pushing carts. But he's really tremendous researcher, and he knows everyone. Leo Sprinkle, Hynek, he's just the Gray Barker, all the Howard Menger from when he was a kid. He was in the Inquirer at 15, and a lot of information in his book. Check him out. Amazon, Raymond Keller, The Venus Trilogy, Venus Rising, Rockets to Venus, and Cosmic Rays Excellent Adventure. The next one's coming out, and I'll have the forward is it forward forward in that book. So anyway, in 1989, after he'd had this meeting, he had been in contact with a pastor of the Mormon Church who was at the time 90 years old, living in Mount Shasta, and he told him, "Come up here. Lady Ankara will meet you in a specific location on the mountain. There's a portal to another dimension up there." So he bought himself and 6 women. They hiked up Mount Shasta, and they were there. And this woman in a silver spaceship appeared physically and talked with them for 3 hours. Now, I want to go. Have you ever heard of Annalise Guerin?
No.
She was a Mormon woman, and she wrote 8 books. One of them is called The Pearl of Great Price. And she was talking in the Mormon Church about the importance of women and how Joseph Smith had related to women and the importance of women in the church. And, of course, it hadn't even been, 150 years, and the church is already messed up, and they started condemning her because she was a woman. They eventually came into one of her lectures and shamed her and then excommunicated her. Well, she continued her mission, and she was close to this other pastor. She wrote these books, Annalise Guerin, Analeeskarin. Check her books out. Amazing. So I think it was, I want to say 83, or she was 83 years old. I forget the time when she ascended, but it had to be before 89. And she had appeared to the pastor that was living in Shasta in 1989 when he went up there. Maybe it was 87, I forget, after the harmonic convergence or something. It was in August, he said. And she had appeared to him as a young woman, and she raised her hand in the Ascension sign of the symbol of the Great White Brotherhood that's talked about in the Saint Germain series.
Saint Germain.
When they went to India, the Great White Brotherhood guy gave the symbol of the hand. It's, I'm not going to say what it is right now, but that's how they found him. So she gave that sign of the Ascension and ascended in an orb. So there's these little orbs, these little circular, they're called nimbuses. And they're actually on the physical plane. They can come, and they're actually beings that can travel not only in time, but that's how they can travel. And so she ascended, and her false teeth fell out, and she was a young woman again. So fast forward to 1987, she's no longer Annalise Guerin. She is now taken back up her name as Lady Ankara, the Venutian, who contacted Virgil Publicus Moro in 1 BC. Raymond also told me that Dante had journeys to Venus. So he, they call it paradise. So there's lots of historical relationship that's being revealed by Raymond to our brothers and sisters from our sister planet. So he was on there. She's in a silver spacesuit, and he's looking behind her, and they're seeing these praying mantis beings. And he's like, they look like they're on the mountain. He goes, are they on the mountain? She goes, no, actually, I'm speaking to you from a planet in Sirius B, which is the smaller, they call it the pup, the dog star is the Sirius system that rotates around that other sun, and on the planet called Bellicor. And she said, I am here on a mission establishing a Venusian colony in the system, and I am the prime liaison between the native species, which is a praying mantis. This is very close to the center of the galaxy. And he told me that these mantis beings are what are known as cherubs. And in his book, second book, Rockets to Venus, he goes into the importance. And actually, there are ancient Egyptian, African, Greek, Roman references to the mantis being and its importance. And these are the guardians this the throne of God, I guess you call it. Although we want to think of God as a anthropomorphic being,
right?
So I was like, "Whoa, really?" That I said that doesn't bode well for the admin canon. The guardians of the galaxy are insects. He goes, "Yeah." So, but the women place their hands on the head, and they can telepathically communicate. So there's a close relationship now. They're building these large longhouses built out of large trees that are half in the ground, and there's some things going on. You can ask Raymond about that. And so they had that talk for 3 hours. They took a picture. The picture came out with the people's arms around her. She wasn't there in the picture. Huh. Now let's fast forward to 2012. And we go to Lady. We've already talked about George Van Tassel. Not die. He was taken up. We've talked about. We believe that George Adamski also was regressed in age and kind of ascended. And then now we've heard about Annalise Guerin. So now let's go to 2012, and he's in China. He's lived in 44 countries. He's with the military, and I just love him so much. And he,
I do too, and I haven't met him yet, but I can feel him through you.
When you meet him, you're just going to hug him. He's always smiling and radiating a presence of compassion and nothing political, no ego. He doesn't need security guards when he goes to the bathroom like some of these people in the space or whatever in the field. There's no big rock star vibe from these people. Yeah. It's not political. So it's all about love and consciousness and truth. So he's in a bar. It's called the B Bar. Now, and I'll get into the B history if we have time. So he's in the B Bar, and the Lady Orta comes and appears to him and goes, Raymond, they walk back to the hotel, and then she leaves because you want to go to Ascension party? He says, sure. So I already told you a little bit about that. So she appears at his room, and they go up on the roof, and she activates her nimbus, and a little sphere appears, and she's sitting in it, and he steps up into it, and they start to head towards the high Tibetan plateau from China. He said he's getting a little cold. She goes, oh, I'm sorry. So she just heated it up a little bit, and they traveled, and they came to a high Tibetan plateau where there's a lake of demons and a lake of angels. It's allegedly a place of a E.T. battle a long time ago. And the Tibetans are very closely associated with the Venusians. Lobsang Rampa's book, My Flight to Venus, can go to that. He said when he came over there, he could see in the valley a cigar-shaped mothership and Commander Valiant Thor's Victor 1 ship hiding in the valley. Huh. And 4,500 nimbuses were landing all at the same time around the lakes. And there was a tent with Tibetan prayer flags and a bunch of monks outside. And they get there, him and the woman, Lady Orda, and her story is quite interesting, and out steps Lady Ankara. So they all went on board the cigar-shaped ship. They didn't go on Valiant Thor's ship, and they went up for the Ascension, where the queen, Lady Orda, became the queen, and he got to stay there for 2.5 months. I'm going to go back to the history of Lady Orda real quick. She was born in 1585 in the Basque region of Spain. Her family had put her in a nunnery, and they had basically slaved her out since she was 5. At 15, she was running away. And she was headed to Barcelona to see her grandmother and then to catch a ship and get to South America where her brother was a conquistador. And so she was sleeping. It was raining, and she found shelter in a barn in a hayloft, and an angel appeared to her and granted her immortality. And so she had lived for she's 600 years old now, basically, in one body. And when before she left, she talked to a priest and confessed to him what happened. And then she went and she dressed as a man. She's quite small and unique, and there's all kinds of pictures of her now. I'm making her famous. But, and Raymond is too. I mean, I'm getting it out there like nobody's business because it's important for the UF movement to get some deeper understanding here. And I'm going to go back to George Adamski and George Hunt Williamson and all that stuff in a second here. But a guy found out she was a woman, tried to rape her, and she killed him, stabbed him with a knife. She ran to the church, and that was like the Hunchback of Notre Dame days. They had sanctuary then. You couldn't do anything in the church. So the military guys, we want blood. And they said, well, you got to talk to the Pope. So they kept going back and forth to the Pope. It was like a year and a half, you know. Well, they sent a letter, and then she sent a letter, and then the Pope responded. And, you know, by the time it was a year and a half before she was granted safe passage back to the Pope. She was kind of under military arrest. And the Pope said, did you speak to Cardinal so-and-so? She said, yes, or Bishop so-and-so. And she said, yes. She goes, and the Pope said, I believe it's better to believe you than to doubt you. I absolve you of that, and you can go back to South America. And she went back, and she had a cadre of women and men conquistadors that would show up anytime women were being abused and kick some booty.
Huh.
Even
I like her.
when they were affecting, and the stories of this type of stuff go on. So she came all the way up to North America in the mission, and she was up here, and then she moved back down when Kennedy was died. She was disheartened, but she has a safe house in Brazil, and but she's spending a lot of time, of course, working for the Confederation and her duties on Venus now, working in the Titan system and so forth. But in the Saturnian system there. And so, you know, she's very busy now, but she sends messages to him through various channels.
Welcome to Skype call testing service. After the beep, please record a message. Afterwards, your message will be played back to you.
Test. Testing 1, 2, 3. ABCD.
Testing. Sure, I'm here.
Hi.
How are we doing? Test.
Testing 1, 2, 3. ABCD.
Testing. Sure, I'm here.
Okay.
If you are able to hear your own voice, then you have configured Skype correctly. If you hear this message, but not your own voice, then something is wrong with your audio recording settings. Please check your microphone and microphone settings or visit skype.com for more help. Thank you for using the Skype call testing service. Goodbye.
You need to pull that sound test off of that board. I don't know how that got on there.
Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message. Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at buyer risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we are listener-sponsored and commercial-free. But there still are bills to pay. In order to raise some needed funds to cover the cost, our station is offering a silver special. In the continental United States for a $60 donation, or in Alaska, Hawaii, or Canada for a $70 donation, we will send you an uncirculated 2018 1-ounce pure silver Eagle. The $70 donation, the extra 10 is to cover shipping, by the way, outside of the continental United States. When making the donation, you must put Silver Eagle promo in the notes on the donation. And thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at revolution.radio and freedomslips.com. Without you, there is no us. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Take a look around, kid. What do you see? Homes being foreclosed. People working 2-3 jobs just to put food on the table and still drowning in debt. Don't get me wrong. This country is founded on great ideals and principles. They've all been ruined by the banks. Open your eyes to banks that are robbing you. You know who my favorite president was? Who? Thomas Jefferson. Because he saw all of this coming and tried to stop it. He fought the banks. JFK too, and they killed him for it. The banking institution is more dangerous than an army, he said. He also said that every generation needs a revolution, Jimmy. The American dream is just that. Just a dream. War is a continuation of politics, only by other means. Politics is a continuation of economics by other means. This is our bank.